Aloha, welcome, Linda. Let's see, who else do we have joining? Oh, Beth and Dave, great to always have you. Oh, Linda, yay, I'm glad you made it. So, Linda, for your information, Delphine, and I hope it's okay to share this. I met Linda earlier this year. We had a community art exhibit at the Downtown Art Center, and her friends submitted a wonderful piece, which
Mhm.
they ended up donating to the Parks Museum collection, which we're very grateful for. And she was really disappointed that your talk had to be rescheduled because of the government shutdown. And she had
Mhm.
asked that I let her know when it was rescheduled. So I know Linda's been very looking forward to this. And oh, hi, Cody, welcome. Hi, and welcome as well. And so, yeah, um, there was interest in your talk for sure. So I know we like to give folks a little bit of time to join. And I always, for those of you who have joined us in previous uh, talks, I always like to open up with, I'm always just curious where people join us from. Oh, and my video, sorry, turned off all of a sudden. Um, where people join us from. So if people are comfortable joining, sharing where they might be joining us this evening and want to share it in the chat, I'd love to know where where you're joining us from. I can tell you all I am actually joining tonight from home. I had a bit of a knee injury, so I have been working from home a little bit to give my knee a little bit of a rest. So I am coming from you from where I was born and raised in Mo'ili'i. So that's where I'm joining you all from tonight. All right, we might have some shy people. All right, well, I definitely know there's a lot that Delphine wants to share with us, so I don't want to take up too much of the time away from her. So I'm just going to go ahead and start and share a little bit about her before we jump in. So Delphine is the author of over a dozen books, including The Art of Gaman. And I'm going to put a little video in the chat because there was a nice Smithsonian exhibit that had been done based upon her book. And it's a nice video that was done for that exhibit. So I'll put that in the chat for people to be able to maybe watch later. But The Art of Gaman, Arts and Crafts from the Japanese American Internment Camps, 1942 through 1946, which became, as I said, a traveling exhibit. And it was shown across 10 museums, including clearly the Smithsonian, as I just mentioned, and the International Art Museum in Santa Fe. So Japanese NHK Broadcasting also sponsored a 5-city tour of this exhibition, and Delphine was the organizer and curator. The exhibition was also seen by special request by the Emperor and Empress of Japan. And for more than 25 years, she's also written a weekly feature column for the two largest Japanese American newspapers in the US and co authored the Japanese cookbook Flavors of Japan. She was named a laureate of the San Francisco Public Library in 2002, and her latest book, Broad Stripes, Bright Stars, co authored with designer Kit Henricks and photographer Terry Heffernan, is actually released in bookstores in time for the 250th anniversary. So that's going to be this year, Delphine?
It's out now, and if
Oh,
you're
it's
in,
out now. Great.
yes.
Great. We'll definitely look it up. She is sansei, third generation, whose family was interned in Jerome and Rohwer, Arkansas during the war. Her father, who was born in Hawaii, served with the 442nd Hundredth in Italy. He was drafted from the camps even though he was 38 years old and had two children as well. So, with that, Delphine, I am going to go ahead and hand it over to you to share about your wonderful work with all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. It's nice to be here. I would rather be in Hawaii, as you probably know, but it's great to be here. I did this book in 2000. Uh, I was going to say that this project started in 2001 after my mom died, and up until then, but people weren't talking about the camps at all. And but I've happened across a bird pin, a tiny carved wooden pin that was somehow stashed in the garage, and I liked it, and I started wearing it. And that's how this whole project came about. somebody asked me where the pin came from, and I said, I think it was from the camps. And then he asked what else was made in camp. And that got me uh, just asking people what they could show me. And I was amazed at what I saw, because by and large, the people who I knew from my parents' age, they were all um, farmers in the valley, in the Central Valley, and I didn't think they had any artistic skill, and it sort of blew me away when I saw what they were creating. So, Wes, where are you?
I'm here.
Okay, I can't see anything on the screen, including myself. Um, damn. Um, are you on the are you on the Pearl Harbor scene?
Nope, not yet. I am now.
Okay, okay. So everything started, of course, from December 7th, 1941, with the attack on Pearl Harbor. But by the end of the day there, the FBI had swooped into a lot of homes in on the West Coast, and they started searching the homes of people who were either uh, in the church, the fishermen, and they started arresting the prominent leaders in the Japanese community. And so my aunt, whose uncle father was arrested, said that she was 14 or 13 when the FBI came in, and they rifled through everything, including her panty drawer, and she was really traumatized by that. But so that was just the day after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And of course, the newspapers were filled with all kinds of stories about attacks, and the number of people who were lost. And there were enough attacks on Japanese Americans in on the West Coast that this man that this who had a grocery store, he posted a sign saying, "I am an American." He was also a university graduate. He graduated from Berkeley, and but he was trying to um, tell people he wasn't the enemy, and um, uh, so that happened more than once. But I know that my grandfather's house, the people who lived next door, their house was burned down. So and people started throwing anything that had Japanese writing or anything in the outhouse well. So um, samurai swords and um, uh, records, my and Japanese books, all went and were either burned or thrown down the outhouse well. And so this was happening um, right after Pearl Harbor. And but 10 weeks later, Roosevelt signed the Executive Order 9066 on February 19th, 1942. And the way people found out that they were being sent into camp was they just simply posted these flyers on telephone poles in store windows, telling them that they had to the all people of Japanese ancestry were expected to report to camp, and they were given roughly a week to 10 days to do it. And they were told that they could only take what they could carry, and what they could carry had to include their bedding, their clothes, their eating utensils. And so that meant that everything they had, everything else they had to be sold or stored or something. So there was it was there was just mass chaos during that period, and people didn't there's some people who got together and they stored their things in church basements and things like that. um, I know that Dad had just bought a tractor when the war broke out, um, and he just he couldn't sell it. No, everybody knew that they couldn't hang on to it. So if he sold it, he'd sold it pennies on the dollar. But that was the case up and down the coast. There were 127,000 ethnic Japanese living in on the west in on the mainland, and out of the 127,000, 120 of them lived on the west coast. So when the orders came down that all Japanese on the west coast had to um, leave the west coast and report into camp, that was about 80% of the population of the U.S. Um, and the um, the way people found out about that they had to go into camp was there's in Little Tokyo they had put up flyers in windows showing them the notice that instructions to report into camp, and then all the stores that were Japanese owned had to immediately start selling off their things or closing or giving it away. And they um so that was that all happened really quickly. And in the case of it, and they had to on Terminus Island, they had they reported to be sent away, and there were guards lined up to make sure they didn't they stayed in line, and so um, it's Wes, where are we on this?
I have your screen showing the train station.
Oh, good, thank you. Okay,
Mhm.
I I'm sorry, I can't see anything on my screen, so I have no idea where we are. Um, um, uh, so the first to be evacuated were the people on Terminal Island and near uh, LA, and then this is a picture of them being lined up with guards standing there to make sure that they um, I don't know what they were trying to make sure. They and the orders said that it wasn't just suspicious men or people who had to be evacuated. The order said that anyone of Japanese ancestry had to go into camp, and that included, um, elderly people, children. There were and there blind people. They took people who had um, could not walk. They took people out of hospitals, and people who and um, so it was not one drop of Japanese blood on the West Coast. That was the order. And one of the things that they did was also um, uh, empty the orphanages and the foster care facilities. So when that came down, they took these orphans out of the orphanages and put them in. All of them were sent to Manzanar, but the youngest orphan was like 6 months old, and it really begs the question, how this harm dangerous to the US to do that. Um, so, and there's a map here of where the camps were. There were 10 camps in the US on the mainland, and most of them were in desert locations, and the last two were in Arkansas, and those were in swampland. The because the evacuation happened so quickly, they did it in two stages. They said, okay, we're going to just get people into camp, and they found fairgrounds and racetracks and assigned people to live in horse stables while they while the permanent camps were built. But uh, anyway, where are we, Wes?
Still on the map, miss. I can change
Okay,
it.
so okay, let's go further into the we're um beyond the I wish I could see the screen. I'm sorry. This is very disconcerting. Um the if after the orphans, you could see that they were assigned to live in horse stalls and temporarily. And so people complained that, there was still a strong smell of horse manure and there. And then they were handed um, um, mattress ticking and told to fill their mattress with straw. And so that was where they lived, and so they were told that they would only have to be there a few weeks because their permanent camps were being built. And as it turned out, building the permanent camps took a long time. So some of them were there 6 weeks or six months, uh, or uh, for months on end. So but you see the horse stall that by the time they left um the uh, fairgrounds or racetrack, they had planted gardens. They had tried to beautify their surroundings. They were there. There was they didn't just wallow in self-pity. They were trying to, it's interesting, they put up curtains in the horse stalls. They had their broom and mop and everything in their planted little gardens. And so that this was, they were trying to make a home for themselves. But in the meantime, the permanent camps were being built, and 8 of them were in the desert, and 2 of them were in Arkansas. And before they could build the camps, they had to build the roads to get people into camp. And so you could see the dirt roads and trying to get it. And then they were building the camps, but it was going so slowly that they started asking for volunteers to go there to build the camps. So some of my uncles volunteered to build the camps. It seemed like if you're living in a horse stall, being able to go to a regular barrack seemed very spacious. So that was where they went. But at the um, picture, I hope we're at the picture with the flag. Is that right, Wes?
I'm showing the camp housing right now.
Okay. So if um there's if you show the one with the flag, that's Manzanar. And
Showing
Manzanar
now.
all of these camps, since they were in the desert, the temperature was terrible and the dust storms were ferocious. People said that when they went to sleep at night, when they woke up in the morning, the only part of the pillow that didn't have dust on it was where their head was lying. Um, and so this, but that was and the temperatures in places like Poston, Arizona, went up to the one recorded temperature was 124 degrees. And someone said that people would walk around with wet towels on their head because it was just unbearably hot. Um, and but every camp had these guard towers uh, and they had guns pointing down at them. And so that was the life that they were living in within a year after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Okay, community behind barbed wires. Are we there, Russ?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Um, uh, because they were there and they took. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. God. Sorry. Um, okay. So because they were within the camps were roughly 1 square mile and they couldn't leave. There were roughly 10,000 people in the camps. And so that in order to just sort of keep from going crazy, they started all kinds of programs. The arts program was people started um, crocheting, painting, building things. They had talent shows. They set up little schools for the children. Um, and this was everybody in the camp. It wasn't just somebody with artistic talent. They didn't have that when they were assigned to their barrack, the only thing that was there was a metal cot. And so they didn't have a clothes hanger to hang their clothes or anything. So someone showed me how they made clothes hangers and then there was a lot of scrap lumber there because the camps were being built. They weren't fully furnished. So everybody started going out to the scrap pile and grabbing lumber so that um, uh, they could build just a chair and anything that would make their life more comfortable. Um, and so you see people who um, uh, are you out on the painting thing, Wes?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about okay. The next the if the you go to the next one after that, that shows they put on talent or they couldn't take their um any cameras or radios or record players into the camps initially. And so this camp they had record night. So it drew an audience in outside and they would gather there and listen to records. And it was this is one of them, and I think this was in the Bay Area. And then they started art schools. And so it wasn't just children, but it was adults too. They they there were some teachers who were very the were teaching art in college and things, and they were recruited to teach some of the people in camp. And but there was a man named Chiro Obata who's an artist and whose work is in many of the museums in California, certainly. And he went to the authorities and said, "Let me start an art school in camp. If you take 120,000 people and put them behind barbed wire, they're going to go crazy unless you give them something to do." And so he was allowed to start an art school and for every age. And people because they had nothing to do, they went there. So a lot of people know didn't know they had any didn't have any expectations for themselves. they just wanted to be able to keep busy. And so what's amazing about the art that I've seen is that a lot of these people painted or did something, but they never did it again. They only practiced that during when they were in camp. And I don't think they knew how good they were. They they it was just busy work, as they kept saying. It's busy work. What are we going to do? We can't leave. This is how we pass the time. And so, because I think they had no or low expectations for themselves, I think they let themselves really, they were not critical, so they let their imagination run wild, and they did um, produce some pretty amazing things. And one of the pastimes uh, that was done in every camp was carving bird pins. Are we on that page, Wes?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so the interesting thing about bird pins was that you didn't need much wood. It was most of the pins were like 2 inches or 3 inches at most. And someone said that when fruit crates and delivery crates were sent in, the edges of the crates were thicker than the plywood bottoms. And so they still took a lot of those and they chopped them up into like 4 inch squares, and they had Audubon cards and National Geographic magazine with bird drawings, and they would copy those and they would carve birds with that. And they had there was a camp. You could order that by mail order, so they would get little paint and things like that to paint the birds. A safety pin on the back of the pin was with the clasp, and so when you see them, the you could pretty much tell that it was made in camp because of the certain style. And some people were very good, some people were less so. The and the younger ones like to make things like Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse and a lot of the Disney characters. And so that was because it was the supplies were minimal and you could do it anywhere. All you needed was a little pocket knife, and uh, everybody was doing it. It was a pastime for a lot of men, and I heard of one man had that was not unusual for them to make hundreds of bird pins. And um, if, when I was giving a talk in Sacramento, someone said to me, "Oh, I was going through the trash and I found a whole box of bird pins." And he asked her father what they were doing there, and he said, "Oh, throw them away. That was just stuff that we did in camp to pass the time." So a lot of it wasn't kept. People didn't necessarily, everybody was doing some kind of craft. A lot of people didn't think they had the talent. They were just doing it to pass the time. So, the man who was throwing away a box of bird pins simply thought everybody was doing it. This isn't anything special. But there are still hundreds of them in existence, and you might have one too. So if we could go to the next page, Wes, are you on Art of Necessity? Wes, Wes,
Yeah, I'm here.
are you on Art of
Yes.
Necessity? Okay. Well, one of the things is they didn't have tools. Somebody said that because the camps were still being built, that the workmen kept finding that their tools disappeared. They were stolen during the night, and other people found metal on the ground and made their own tools. This is a pair of scissors made by a farmer in Lodi, California. And the other, so there are a lot of handmade tools. There were uh, dinnerware, that there were butter knives and things that were sharpened into, and so there were the at first um, the tools that they used were either swiped from the workmen or they were improvised from things that they found in the around the grounds. Um, and then but one of the things the immediate need when they were in camp was to have things like door signs. All the barracks looked alike, and so people were walking into each other's space. So this sign says Yamaichi, and so the first thing that people did was to try to make a little sign to put outside their door to identify who lived there. Um, and and because there was no furniture in the barracks, people were building their own chairs, they built dressers, they built tables, and some of them were quite creative. This was an early chair made right after somebody got into camp, and his son said that he insisted on taking it home with him when the camps closed. And he displayed it prominently in the living room. And it's really very crude, but poignant in its own way. The other thing is that the grounds were not paved, and the bathhouse and the uh, toilets and everything were in different buildings, so they needed slippers to go from building to building. And so one of the cottage industries was to make geta sandals so that they could go to the showers and things. So that appeared in every camp. In some cases, some of the women got creative and wanted platform ones, and they were um, they were quite tall, apparently. This little chest was made by another farmer in where I grew up, and it was just to hold trinkets, and uh, it's only about a foot and a half high, and but it's quite nice. If you go to the next page, the this this Japanese scroll or whatever it is was because the camps were became largely built by the people who were imprisoned there. The camp authorities drew up a thank you thing saying that the work was done by um, some very hardworking people there, and it was issued as a thank you note for them. But what's interesting is if you look at the corners, there are the guard towers, and it's circled by barbed wire. So um uh um that was there was some there's an irony to the whole thing. Um, and the next one is the basket. Because people didn't have any place to put things, making baskets was popular. They got twine from uh, uh, shipping materials, or they just found grass that they could braid, and they made their own baskets. Um, and this last one is a three three little drawers, and this person found a crate, and he cut branches crosswise, and he glued them onto this crate to make, and it's really quite stylish. And so they um the this I don't know what his profession was there, um uh, but it's interesting as time wore on, they, instead of just making these really hastily built chairs or something, they started to get more creative and do things that had some artistic value. And this one he did, and he brought home with him. Um, and So where are we? Are we with the shell pins, Wes?
I am now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about this. The there are two camps, Tule Lake and um um Tule Lake and uh Utah. God, I'm blanking out on topaz, that were built over ancient seabeds. And when people got there, and even now, if you go to pilgrimage, you could just kick the soil, and some seashells will come up. And people discovered that if they pick up these shells, and because the flowers and plants didn't grow easily in the desert, they discovered that they could pick up these shells, bleach them, dye them, paint them, and form into corsages and things um, for weddings. They and there are table ornaments that they made out of shell pins, um, and and so these camps, the when you see the shell objects, most of them were from two camps, Tule Lake and Topaz. And but then when people were transferred from camp to camp, which was done later, when they they took their shells with them, and they so you later on you see some shell pins appearing in other camps. And someone handed me, when I was doing the book, someone handed me two cans of shells that they didn't get around to turning into objects. And so they kept them and brought them home. Another thing that they did was make Japanese dolls. If someone in the camps had a special talent, knew how to do something, then the others would go to them and say, "Would you teach us how to do it?" So this person taught them how to make Japanese dolls. And I think this was all done in topaz. So it depends which camp the what camp somebody would came from, but they said that embroidery was especially done in Hart Mountain, I believe. And but this the doll making was a big deal. And the other thing is that the materials that were there became the source for making art objects. This inkwell that was is made out of slate, and the object was um, for done by a the story goes that the in Topaz there was a man who was um, trying to catch a stray dog, and the guards yelled, "Halt." He didn't hear him. It was a windy day. He didn't hear him. He didn't halt, and he was shot and killed. And so this, when I was talking to them, they said, we know when the people started making objects out of slate, because after the man was killed, the administrator for the camp said, these people aren't trying to escape, they're not dangerous. And he just opened the gates of the camp and let people roam around in the desert. And during that time, they've discovered a slate quarry. And so the objects made out of slate were done um, after this man died, apparently. So um, the okay, I'm gonna the then there were cultural things. You could see the Hanafuda cards. They This man knew how to paint them. He made a set, and the word got around that he was really good at painting them. And so all the other camps started writing to him and asking if they could get a set too. So he apparently made decks of cards for the various camps. Um, the Am I going too fast, West?
No, you're fine.
Okay. The next one is the bonsai. This is made out of crepe paper and twisted wire. And so the um they created objects from their culture out of uh, found materials. Um, the sending body, the vest with the tiger and the thousand stitches is the sending body was for good luck, and most of them were took the shape of a sash. They're made on rice sacks. And in this case, this mother made it on, I think she donated her slip to make this thing. And when people were sent off to war, the usually the mother or the wife would make a thousand stitch sash or garment that they could and collect 1,000 stitches from different people to send them on their way with the good wishes of 1,000 people. So this was the sending body from a man in Sacramento. And the Butsudan, the Buddhist shrine in the next shot, was actually made by two brothers who were woodworkers before the war. I think they had something to do with building the church in San Jose, the Buddhist church in San Jose. But they were the ones who made this Butsudan in camp without any nails. And this was their special talent. Onward. Um, then And they were just doing things to amuse themselves. One was this man carved these climbers climbing up this little um, this this branch that was um, and I've seen two or three versions of this. Apparently, I think they taught this in one class, and so but they some of them were quite nice and others were much, much cruder. But this was one of the things that people created. And these classes were informal. They were just people getting together and somebody knew how to do something and everyone said, could you teach us? And it was a way to socialize, to get together and do things. And this was done with just the pocket knife. Uh, the next picture is of a milk bottle cap that someone glued sunflower seeds too, and to create a little flower pin. Um, and then the elephant standing on the globe was done by my grandfather, and he was a farmer in Lodi. He didn't he liked to whittle a lot. Um, this is the only one I've seen that he did in camp, but it's cute. It's my grandfather, so I like it. Um, the the next shot is a train, and this train, if you look at it closely, it's made from tin cans, um, uh, uh, wire, um, and it's all found material, bolts and found materials. And this man made them, and he made the tracks, and he made it so um, effectively that the train actually will roll on the track. It's pretty cool. Um, and apparently when he was older, he went to back to Manzanar just to see it again. And there was a museum near Manzanar, and he walked in and he just handed him the train. And he said, I made this in camp, and maybe you could keep it. So anyway, they have the train, but it's a really amazing train because it runs, it works, and it's all found materials. The the man who made the cow was also a farmer, and he carved several animals, and this was done in Arkansas. Um, and what you find is that in some cases, you could tell where the object was made by the materials that they used. The shell pins, you knew they came from either topaz or Tule Lake. The wooden carved objects, most of them, the ones were from Arkansas and Jerome that was forested. There were uh, um, mesquite and things like that, sort of desert um, plants were from a lot of the camps in Arizona. The snake was one done by a man who volunteered to collect firewood for the um, boiler. And when he went out there, his whole thing was to look for interesting shaped objects, uh, firewood that he could carve into something more. And in this case, he found this branch and he put a snake tongue on it, and it's and painted the eyes, and it's it's really quite interesting. The bird pins were made in every camp, as I said. It didn't take much material. It was easy to get source material or from National Geographic or Audubon cards, and people love carving them more than any other object out there now. There's still a lot of bird pins, and that's what you see mostly. So, okay, if we could go to this set of cards, this because materials were so hard to come by. The um, in this case, this boy, he was still a teenager. He cut up the back of the evacuation notice, and he watercolored on the back. And these were scenes from the camps that he painted. And I don't know if he continued. He lived in Washington State, I believe. Um, the next card, are you at the handkerchief, Wes?
Uh, yes, but we're kind of on time at this point, so we're gonna have to start finishing up.
Okay, I'm almost done.
Thank
Um, okay, the handkerchief is was done in when in Santa Fe when the people were when men were their cases were heard and they were released into regular camps. This was a regular Justice Department run camp. The other prisoners would sign a handkerchief or something for them as a going away gift. In 1945, the government decided that they would allow people to return to the West Coast. They could, they had relaxed things, regulations, and let people leave the camps to go east to Chicago, mostly to Chicago. But so in 1945, they gave people, they gave them $25 and a ticket home. And so that was the camps were closed. This people still were drawing pictures of Tule Lake. If you go to the third the after um the painting watercolor, there's this camp with the garden in front. And that was the grounds before people started planning things, and they were determined to make it homey. So you barely recognize the barracks. They're there. Um, okay, now there's um I did a second book called All That Remains that has more objects done in camp. And then there were some drawings like this from um, it's from Topaz, I believe. And but people did, made things in addition to trying to beautify their surroundings. This was this harbor scene. Somebody created this in the desert, and they have a lighthouse. They have water. They have, and it's a pretty amazing a lamp a flagpole, and it's pretty amazing what they created. And somebody said, they had to carry the water from the laundry room to do this. So they were determined. Um, anyway, that is I apologize for not being able to get this to work. But
Delphine, you did great. Yeah,
yeah.
thank you so much for persevering through the technical
Oh,
difficulties,
I'm
and
sorry. I couldn't see a
that's
thing on the
okay.
screen.
No, and
I'm just sort
Wes
of
for
talking to
your
myself.
yeah, for your also helping the presentation and allowing us to see what Delphine wanted to share with us. Yes, you did great
Okay.
persevering, talking through
Okay.
a presentation you couldn't even see. So yes,
Yeah.
you both did great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Okay.
I know we just have a couple minutes.
Yes.
We were going to also share a little bit of what folks could see in terms
Yes.
of
Yes.
the arts and crafts that were actually created at Honolulu as well.
Uh-huh.
So I am going to now share my screen and ask folks to bear with as I do that right now. Let's see. So I too sometimes am technically challenged. My friends call me a Luddite for a reason. So you guys are all lucky or not to bear with us as we as I too am technically challenged. But let's see. So
My
I am,
excuse is that I'm 80.
well, I'm much younger than you, and I have no excuse. All right. So unfortunately, it's not. Oh, there we go. Share. All right. Thanks for that, West. I was saying it was heartbreaking. The slate objects story that you shared, that was just really heartbreaking. So we do, Honolulu actually shares some similarities with regard to the arts and crafts in terms of bird pins were also created here, as you can see. So these are all arts and crafts that were created at Honolulu. And so we do share the bird pins as well as the shell jewelry and the artwork on shells that were created. What's interesting that was told to me by a person who worked at the Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii, Betsy Young, who recently passed away. She told me that you knew people were from Hawaii because in addition to bird pins, they also made a marine fish pins. And so people who
Hmm.
made those people knew they were from Hawaii because, we're an island. So
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting as well. I think the other unique crafts that were created at Honolulu were things like this ring that, if you can believe it or not, was actually made out of toothbrush handles. You see
Yeah.
people making beautiful bowls out of monkey pod trees, again, things that they could find around the camp. There were also sketches that were made at the camp as well, and beautiful other artwork like the sumie ink painting as well. And this is a historic photo of Honolulu, and I have this line to this photo in that a lot of the arts and crafts, unlike the continent, Honolulu was not for families. It was not meant, it was selected individuals, leaders of the community. So they too practiced arts and crafts to help while away the boredom. But really, it was mainly to create them for family members who could visit them and give them to their kids, give them to their wives as gifts during this visitation. So there weren't, there weren't art classes because it wasn't in the thousands like places like Manzanar where Japanese Americans were held. Honolulu was more in the 400s. And again, it was not whole families, but individuals. And so this historic photo shows the mess hall where families were allowed to reunite and mothers and fathers could see their children. And this photo shows Koji Hashimoto, who was a teacher on this very mess hall slab foundation after the camp was closed, and he brought his two kids back. And this is where, he was able to see them. So that's a little bit of sharing, a little bit about kind of what the camps were like for Honolulu incarcerated and kind of the arts and crafts that they created as well. And if folks really want to see these in person, I highly encourage you to, going to put it in the chat link, two places where you can see arts and crafts that were created at Honolulu. One is at the Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii, and one is a temporary exhibit at the Judiciary History Center in downtown, where our state Supreme Court is. And they have a temporary exhibit there also that has some of the arts and crafts that you can see for yourself, including that ring I showed you. And he was a tailor in Haleiwa. And so he created that beautiful ring out of toothbrush handles as well. So those are some of the places that you can see some of the arts and crafts that were created at Honolulu for those who are locally joining us today. I know we're a little bit over time, so I'm just going to put the last link in the chat, which is basically I'm checking out the rest of our 80th commemorative events. In August, in person, I want to highlight we have a very special partnership with the Hawaii Symphony on August 23rd, free at Pearl Harbor National Theater. Members of the symphony, first chair Iggy Jiang is joining us to play some pieces based upon a violin that was used at Honolulu, and you will see that violin in person, not played, but it will be on stage to have the daughter of the father who owned that violin share a little bit about her father and the violin that he used. Music also played along with arts and crafts, a big component of how people spent their time at Honolulu. So that's a great opportunity for an in-person event in August. We'll have another virtual speaker series as well. And if you're on the neighbor islands, we'll be on the neighbor islands in August as well on Lanai Molokai, doing the same film screening and panel session for the Hawaii Symphony partnership as well. So you can check that out on our website and all the other events we plan through the end of September to commemorate 80 years since the camp was closed. And with that, I thank you for hanging in there with us, everybody. We're a little bit over and for technical difficulties, but thank you for joining. And Delphine, again, thanks for persevering through it. And I know I learned a lot, and thank you for sharing all the wonderful work that you did to help continue to preserve this history through the work that you've done and sharing with us your time and your knowledge tonight. So thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.